All right, folks, we are here. We are live. And we're ready for a beer. Yeah, how's it going, guys? Angry Canadian here, and I am here to talk about the corrupt worker shortage, or fabricated as it was. Now, not all businesses in Canada are in on this corruption. In fact, a lot of them are actually not. But there's a good chunk of
Here to
them.
talk.
There's a good chunk of them that really that are really bad apples. So let's go get right into this. So, what am I talking about? So, personally, there's plenty of jobs out there. Why aren't Canadians filling them? This was a 2021 article. Um, and let's read on to this. So, Global News, they struggle to find workers. And here's actually the reason why um, that this happens. So, what they're not even saying is that they extend the Canada Recovering Hiring Program and some new hires for 6 months. This was the plan before, like, the whole election happened. Um, so this was before I actually started looking for work, and there was a bit of a labor shortage. A lot of it was during the pandemic. Now, here's where things get real. Is there's labor shortages and all that. It was a lot of these smaller businesses too. I'm motivated to find new jobs. Let's see what other ones. Flight disruptions. Not everyone thinks. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. So they pushed immigration in. National crisis that won't be solved by provinces. But here's what actually happened because the businesses couldn't find the evidence. So what happened was this is a paid program here, but basically you look at this. Trudeau's government radically transformed Canada's temporary foreign worker program. Young people and low-wage workers are paying the price. Oh, I mean, I can't watch that. Listen to this. But from fast food construction, this is a CBC article. This is your folks, Trudeau. This is your folks. And this is what happened. This is what happens when you bend the knee on businesses instead of telling them it's not our problem that your hiring practices are absolute garbage. This is approvals through the temporary foreign worker. So businesses' demand for temporary foreign workers surged across the country in recent years because they don't want to pay and they're choosing not to hire people. That's exactly what's going on. In 2022, all right, they were doing the same shtick as they did 2021. At first, it was like, okay, there's a genuine shortage, but then I was applying for jobs. I was applying for jobs during this time, right? Let's see, I was applying for jobs during this time, and there were some really crappy ones I had to do. And one time when I was literally looking for work, I was struggling hard to find a job. I literally was. I spent 3 days in my basement alone, isolated, just applying 3 full days until I ran out of places to apply. I got 2 interviews. This was not a this was not a issue that Canada really should have had. I know no one wants to watch this stuff because no one wants to watch what I'm saying. But I don't think this is even being pushed out. But look at this. So the program is designed to provide short-term relief to players as players to last resort. Businesses have been exploiting this, but it's been scrutinized for its intentional knock-on effects to the broader economy and the vulnerable position in which it can place workers. Yeah, because you're choosing not to hire people. In fact, they were literally telling people, we can't find workers, as I was literally in an employment agency office looking for work. I literally went on the media and said, hey, I am here looking for work. There's a couple other people that did the same thing I did. We were saying, hey, we are here. We hire us. And they were like, eh. Last year, employers were cleared to hire 239,646 temporary foreign workers, about the population of Regina. That's up from this in 2018. You see, I don't oppose the foreign worker program completely because I do think it does serve a valid purpose. And like I said, not all businesses are in on this thing. There's a lot of small businesses that thank their mighty stars, and thank that they're actually sticking out for the Canadian people and not the bottom line. Like, I'm lucky that I'm working for a local business. I'm lucky that I buy stuff from local businesses. I buy my Pokemon cards from a local business. I because they have a better deal, they have better value, at least to what I've seen, and I get better customer service. And let's see what else this one says right here, right? The program's go coincide with the government's loosening hiring restrictions to help businesses with post-pandemic labor shortages. Again, the same time I was looking for work. Some economists criticized the move, except for the one that they hired on the media to call us lazy, saying it undermined healthy competition for workers in a market economy. I agree with those economists because you got to tell these businesses, like, you want deregulation. You can't have it all back in return. All we hear about are labor shortages, but we have to recognize that this really is a self-serving narrative, mostly coming from corporate Canada. This is exactly what I have been saying, and people were saying I was full of baloney. This is an economist, Mikhail Skurtrud, a labor economics professor at the University of Waterloo, was saying exactly the same thing that I was saying. Okay, I'm gonna shut this thing up here because I'm just. But this is exactly what I was saying. And I mean, you can say with the bias with CBC, but this, I mean, if CBC is supposed to be the news of the people, this is actually good. And and this is valid information. So you can't say, oh, this is right wing propaganda. This is a CBC article indicating what the case is. Temporary foreign workers have grown substantially. Look at this 2021, right here. 2022, this is where they were calling out for more workers. They wanted more. They wanted more. This is when I was starting to look for work. And this is what happened. I could not find work because they were reliant on the foreign workers. Okay, I didn't look for work here. It was pandemic. 2021, I started too late looking for work. 2022, I had to fight. I actually had work over throughout most of the summer. I also, like I said, I was mostly doing gig work between here and there. And I had to fight to get a job. Like, it was a struggle to get a job here in Canada. As the program started, there have been interest from a wide range of industries. CBC analyzed it, positions on positive labor market impact assessments, a document proving that there are no Canadians available to take a job. Likely because these businesses fabricated information and fabricated data. Because what they probably did, like, I applied for in June or like in July, I applied for a job because I got laid off. I applied for a job at Old Spaghetti Factory. Guess when I heard from those people for an interview? Middle of January, end of February. That is unacceptable. That is unacceptable. You should not be waiting months on end, because what if the person has a better job elsewhere? You messed up. The numbers show that while farm and greenhouse workers have been consistently on the program's most in-demand roles, demand for other jobs is on the rise. Well, okay, so here's what I would say to that. I mean, farmers, yes, they're very essential. They're almost a niche job. Greenhouse workers, again, kind of a niche job depending on where you are. Across the economy, employers have turned to the program to fill roles for ranging from administrative assistants to light-duty cleaners, to construction, trade helpers, and laborers. And look at this. You're seeing like jobs that a lot of people could have done, except for transport truck drivers, because a lot of people, you need a license for that. But food counter attendants, kitchen helpers, related support occupations. Why are they getting the huge jump? Retail sales supervisors. Again, why are they getting that? Okay, these make sense. Nurse aides and all that, just because like nursing and healthcare is very important. Light duty cleaners. An increase in positive LEMA positions doesn't mean that there are more temporary foreign workers in the country. An approved employer might change their mind before actually hiring one. Usually that is the case, but it reflects employers' rising interest in the program, which by any metric is growing. Work permit data published by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada shows that the number of temporary foreign workers in the country last year hit its highest point since records began in 2015, and it is going up. They were crying for workers, right? They were calling, and again, not every business is involved in this, but there's a lot of shady stuff, allegedly, from what I heard, that goes on. Taking fast food chains and restaurants are a major source of demand for temporary foreign workers. Again, they should go and look for high schoolers and pay better wages. The roles with the most approvals, yeah, and these are the roles that I've applied to a lot of the times, and these guys were like, "No, we're not going to hire you. We're not going to hire you." You don't hear from them. Food count. I would say a lot of these jobs should not get the foreign worker program. Fast food chains and restaurants. Food counter attendants, in particular, increased from 170 jobs to 8,333 jobs. Top 10 employers cleared to hire the highest number of them last year were all fast food operators. This is an actual statistic. Now, fortunately, in 2023, I was working. But this is not about me. This meant that there were so many youth that could not find jobs. So many youth could not find a summer job. There was many people that I know that have struggled to find jobs. And there's so many of that on the Edmonton subreddit. If you search on the Edmonton subreddit, you could see that there's a lot of issues with that. There's a discrepancy. You'll see that they have on Indeed 50 to 100 applications, and yet they don't reach out. They don't hire. The relationship between the food service industry and the temporary foreign worker program has at times been fraught. Roughly a decade ago, controversy around the industry's use of the program led to the federal government to impose a temporary moratorium on that sector. They should impose one again. Because Amnesty International has went out and has wrote a story, and I have the email about the temporary foreign worker program. I'm not even scripting this, by the way. But this is that they called, and the United Nations has went as far to call it contemporary slavery. But times have changed along with labor markets. Citing significant labor shortages in 2022, okay, this is bullshit because me looking for work, you no hire me, get angry, go to war with you. The federal government doubled the proportion of low-wage workers businesses could hire through the program, from 10% of their workforce to 20%. Again, I would cut that. Because a lot of these businesses, their hiring teams were absolute garbage. And the reason why they're able to get away with it so much was because of the government, was because of that. Certain sectors particularly hit hard pandemic, including food service, were greenlight to hire as much as 30% of low-wage staff through the program. A lot of these businesses don't. They don't. And what happened is, as you saw in that other article, that they are actually taking away jobs from Canadians, which, again, is a violation. But they will say, "Oh, we looked. No one was good enough." There's a lack of discrepancy there. As you can see in this graph right here. For businesses, a major benefit is stability, as workers' permits are tied to their employer, meaning they can't easily quit to work for a rival business down the street. Okay, that's a fair argument. It guarantees a worker will stay employed with them for the term of their agreement. Yes, and that's why they get exploited. And a lot of these managers, what they'll do is they'll blackmail and resort to exploiting these workers, which is something that I'm heavily opposed against, and it's something that the United Nations and Amnesty International have opposed. CBC News has reached out to 14 restaurants and franchise groups cleared to hire the most cooks, food supervisors, and food counter attendants last year. None agreed to an interview. Oh! Although a spokesperson for FMI, which operates Pizza Hut, KFC, Taco Bell, said the program has allowed it to keep operating in rural and northern areas. None agreed to an interview. That's very interesting. I wonder why. Unfortunately, some of these communities often lack the population base to meet the demand for labor. Yeah, but tell that to a city person in Edmonton. The company was cleared to hire 140 food counter attendants last year, though Maishral, I don't know if I pronounced your name right. Expects to hire 4 this year. Workers experience. Temporary foreign workers experience in Canada is often mixed, said Migrantee Alberta Director Marco Luciano. Some employers follow the rules, he said, but some take advantage of their position by underpaying their workers. And this is why I want to cut the foreign workers program. This is what I'm talking about. This is literally highlighting the corruption. They might downplay this, but this is a CBC article that we're going through right now to expose the foreign worker program. And it's not the foreign workers, okay? Anyone who takes this out of context and wants to sue me for saying, oh, I hate foreign workers, I do not. I think that they are the victims of a much more malicious thing, and they're at no fault. If anything, they're the victims. They need the support, and we need to fix our issues to help them. For workers, a lack of domestic opportunities is typically what pushes people to seek work abroad. Exactly why I want to leave Canada. A lack of domestic opportunities. That's why I'm leaving Canada. Canada is appealing because it's one of the few countries where a temporary job can turn into a permanent residency. But the experience of being a temporary foreign worker can be mixed. There are good employers who abide by their contracts and support workers in applying for permanent residency. So there are good ones. Let me be clear. There are good ones. I'm not trying to make this as some sort of propagandist information. But there is corruption in it. But like I've even said at the beginning of this stream, there are good workers. There are good employers. I am fortunate enough to work with good employers. The two jobs I had were some of the best employers I've ever worked for. They were absolutely amazing people. And I'm still working for one of them right now. The other one is off for the season, but they are some of the best employers I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And I'm actually working with one of them tomorrow. And like I said, absolute absolute gems of businesses. They care about the workers, they care about the people. It's such a good experience. The morale is there. They always check in on you. My boss was really, really good, just really nice. Said Ruth St. Martin, for temporary foreign worker moved Philippines to St. Albert. You know what? That's what I want to hear. To work in Arby's restaurant. Since she's obtained permanent residency, became see? This is a good story. Like this is what I want the temporary foreign workers program to be like. I don't want it. I want to be harder on businesses to who exploit foreign workers. I want it to be harder for them to get jobs, and I want to reward the businesses that do a proper job, helping with people. Because again, I do not hate immigration. I do not hate it. I want immigration. I think it's very useful. I think that filling in niche jobs works. When I got my permanent residency, I didn't quit right away in Arby's because I wanted to show my loyalty to my boss. See, this is what happens when when you have competent managements at your business. Like, I'm not going to play that video because I don't want to go copyright strike. Employers must first post the job to find workers locally. But the problem with that is they will have 50 to 100 to even 200 according to Indeed. And what would happen with that is they just choose not to hire anybody. They just choose not to interview. But Luciano said other employers abuse their power and underpay workers, even withholding pay to compensate for the money spent on Alima. Workers are often afraid to speak up for fear of losing their status in Canada. And this is why I actually think that we need to start putting pressure and start hurting businesses that abuse the power. Like, make it harder for them to get those things, make it harder for them to get benefits for foreign workers, because I think that foreign workers do have a role. They do have an important role. I think that we need to take care of the foreign workers and that it is the responsibility of the business to make sure that happens. If they don't do that, then, well, they don't get benefits. They'll get punished. They won't be able to hire foreign workers. It won't be cost effective. Again, serve the people. Yeah, I agree. He was underpaid while working as a cleaner. Yeah, see, this guy right here is a victim. He's a victim of the corruption. And again, everyone's a victim. It's not just the and it's not just the businesses that are helping people that actually can't find workers that are being hurt. It is not the people of Canada whose the businesses are taking their jobs away. It's also the migrants themselves that are having them being hurt. He does not remember his time in the program fondly. Came to Edmonton, worked for Be Clean, a cleaning company contracted by the University of Alberta. Ooh, you hear that, U of A students? At the time, De Leon and his colleagues alleged the company withheld pay and threatened him with deportation. The company later said the unpaid wages were an error, apologized, and said it would pay the workers back. Oh. So it looks like Be Clean should lose its worker benefits, allegedly, if that was the case. We were treated like slaves. We were working like 12 hours every night. We don't get paid for overtime. That's illegal. No night differential. That's also illegal, said De Leon. Out of his past experiences, he has since become an advocate for migrant workers and is seeking his own permanent residency. We were treated like slaves. Don't get paid for overtime. That is illegal. That is illegal. So Be Clean. If I was prime minister, you would lose your benefits. You wouldn't be able to, it would be unaffordable for you to hire foreign workers for exploitation. This is a clear exploitation case. And I know no one's watching this because YouTube's probably saying, no, there's nothing going on. But like, no, this is the case. If it were not for my daughter, I wouldn't have wanted to stay here. But there's no job back home. I do not blame him. I feel bad for him. The temporary foreign worker program can also affect the broader economy. He pointed one paper that suggests that hiring such workers correlates with lower earnings for Canadian workers in similar jobs and locations. We don't like to think this is competition, but of course it's a hard reality. They are required to offer temporary foreign workers at least the regional median hour range for the job in question. But the program isn't the only source of temporary workers in the country. International students also hold permits, as do workers under the wide-ranging International Mobility Program. But taken together, and all these programs show that they're moving away from its points-based immigration system and more ad hoc, where people try to parlay a work or study permit into permanent status. It's like a lottery ticket is your work permit. We need to get back to a transit system that's fair for migrants, not truly temporary. While sectors are now limited to hiring 20% of their staff through temporary foreign worker programs, the construction sector is allowed to retain 30%. This spring, the federal government changed course on the temporary foreign worker program, tightening how many such workers a business can hire, citing changing labor markets and lower vacancies. Most employers are now limited to hiring 20% through the program. They're still higher than pre-pandemic limit of 10%, and some sectors like the healthcare and construction can continue to hire up to 30%. While public pressure has mounted regarding the connection between immigration and housing affordability, they said that these were unrelated, solely based on employment numbers. And there are different perspectives on how to improve the program. They want easier access to permanent residency. The program was created in 1973 as a limited last resort of filling jobs, but it's become core to certain industries with no indication of it anytime soon. Neither migrant worker programs nor workers are truly temporary. So this is an article from Fast Food to Construction. And then I'm not going to go with Yahoo and all that stuff. Canada cracks down on foreign worker exploitation. We'll see how this one does. Must be a temporary solution that can't find qualified workers to get a job. Business Standard. Let's see if this is paid. This is a New Delhi article, so I want to look into more. So this is another one, another exploitation that we see. Workers can't afford affordable housing. Their pension funds are part of the problem. Is the Canadian labor shortage a myth? This is what I was asking. Okay. StatCan numbers go against the grain of a few assumptions that were typically made. Fact is, the so-called labor shortages were most severe in low-wage industries with relatively few formal requirements. Suggest it may be a problem with the jobs, not a shortage of people. This is what I was saying. So says Jim Stanford, economist and director of the Center of Work Future Vancouver, because they're not hiring the people that are applying. They get a lot of applications, and they just choose not to hire. They just choose not to hire. They found that job vacancies that broke things down educational levels to get a more understanding of the labor market. Their modeling division authored the research. Employers' difficulties to find job vacancies requiring high level education cannot, in general, be attributed to the national shortage of highly educated job seekers or to local shortages of such job seekers. Of 1 million vacancies in the fourth quarter of 2022, in many cases, there were enough unemployed Canadians to fill them. This is exactly why I was looking for work during those times. And I literally, as I said, I spent 3 days locked up in my basement applying for jobs. A whole day. I didn't take one break. And out of all that, I heard like much more saying, we're moving on to other candidates. We're moving on to other candidates. There was only two that put me into an interview, and that was two out of over 100 jobs. And these were not like the high end jobs, like obviously where I wouldn't apply. I wouldn't have applied to those. These are jobs exactly what these guys are talking about. For these jobs, there's potentially a large enough pool of highly educated workers at the national and local levels, but since these jobs are not homogenous, vacancies may arise from a lack of coordinates between the skills required for a job and the skills possessed by highly educated job seekers. Decompose the regular Statistics Canada series on job vacancies according to the level of formal qualifications required for the vacancies and found, perhaps surprisingly, the jobs with lower qualifications were the ones with the highest number of vacancies, and the jobs with some qualifications like a college or trade had a moderate number, and there's few vacancies for jobs with university degrees. That goes against the grains of a few assumptions we typically made. Findings are not surprising, but was busted on myths about skills, jobs, and job vacancies. The comprehensions were moving to a knowledge economy, and all these jobs are going to be automated anyway, and that this is nonsense. The labor market continues to produce a large number of jobs that don't require formal qualifications. For those candidates who do have the formal training and post-secondary degrees, sometimes they may have to move outside the job market for reasons other than a lack of opportunities. Yeah, and it may be a function of what we economists call queuing, where there's more applicants than a job, so the employer hires someone with more education, even though they technically don't need it for the job. While it's become the accepted wisdom for many, if not all industries, are experiencing labor shortages, for the lower paid sectors, it's been true for some time. These sectors have the highest vacancy rate in the surveyor hospitality, accommodation, retail, and large lanes of personal services. These low-wage jobs with much part-time work, much irregular shifts, very few employment benefits offered, and really, really high turnover. So because these firms have a higher turnover rate, because frankly, they're not very attractive. But for employers struggling to hire new workers, is there a shortage of acceptable candidates? No. This is an economist saying no. So these guys are choosing not to hire people. In fact, Canada's labor force has grown. Our precipitation rate for core age workers is higher than it's ever been, and now our population is growing very rapidly with this expanded immigration program. So there's no shortage of workers, and we still got 1 million officially unemployed Canadians. We got another million who are underemployed, meaning they're employed, but they're not working as full as they'd like to in terms of hours. And yes, and yet there are another million who have stepped away from applying in large part because they don't think they can find the right job and aren't counted in employment statistics. So that would mean 3 million Canadians couldn't find jobs. And a lot of it, there's the high youth unemployment rate. We're actually going to go into that too. Organizations should pay greater attention to the gig economy in order to find new employees, urges a future of work expert. Many employers need to evolve thinking. StatsCan may have opened some eyes. Many employers remain blissfully unaware of its realities. If it was truly constraining their businesses, they couldn't attract people for those minimum wage jobs, they should change their practices. They would lift their wage. They would offer people full-time regular hours instead of a shift here and a shift there. They would offer them benefits. They would offer them training and a career path rather than just treating them like as a throwaway input. This is another reason why, and yet when people apply for these jobs, they don't hire them. They don't hire them. It's time to take a different view of the workforce by employers who are dealing with a revolving door of workers. Employers should treat labor like a scarce, valuable commodity. That means using it as wisely and as efficiently as possible, and valuing it with better wages and benefits and stability. And that's going to be key for individual firms to solve their problem. All right, and let's look at the youth unemployment rate in Canada. Youth unemployment rate. That's one of the things that pops up right here. The overall unemployment rate for youth, there's employment rates decline. This is from Canada StatCan. By the way, this is a government mandate program. And young men in June, while it had steady for young women. The overall youth unemployment rate has been a downward trend since April 2023. So at least that's up there, but that is very depending on the people. Falling 4.4 percentage points to 54.8% in June 2024. 54.8%. That's the youth employment rate. Since April 2023, the youth employment rate has dropped and it's been dropping. And you know what? That's what happened with the correlation. So that means over 40% of youth are unemployed. From May to August, in June, the unemployment rate for returning students aged 15 to 24 was 46.8%, the lowest rate since June 1998 outside of June 2020 during the first year of the pandemic. And this marks a notable decline from 53.7% in June 2022. You know, when businesses said they couldn't find workers. Returning students was 15.9%, which was up, that and the employment rate for male returning students was 44.4%. Down, females were employed 49.0% for returning students. The returning students who are employed were more likely to work part-time compared with June and there. So this is an extremely high number. So let's look in the news. The long-term consequences of youth unemployment. Youth unemployment on the rise. Canadian youth and full-time work. A slower transition. These are all articles as a result of the consequences of bending the knee to these businesses that were falsely claiming they couldn't find workers. As we looked into the other things, so let's look into policy options because this is going on, right? It's not youth unemployment isn't just a summer problem. They must create opportunities. And again, I'm very fortunate that I get to work at a nice business. I get to work at a very good company. And I know no one's watching this because YouTube ain't pushing it out, but let's read this out. Last July, under idyllic summer conditions, the Canadian Ashton exhibition received a record number of visitors. The gate-crashing crowds didn't come to fawn over farm animals or catch an air show. But rather, more than 37,000 people, nearly double from last year, showed up at the CNA job fair hoping for one of the 5,000 positions such as short order cooks, retail associates, and cashiers. Numbers speak to a particularly bleak situation facing young job hunters. The unemployment rate for students averaged 16.7% from May to August, up significantly from the previous year. Do you think it might be because businesses are stealing those spots to foreign workers? Maybe. And even more challenging for specific groups, 22.8% of immigrant youth were unemployed, while unemployment rate for black students was 29.5%, a dramatic increase. The sluggish economy has increased competition for fewer jobs, and young people generally lack experience because no one in those starter job positions is hiring, and the ones that aren't hiring enough, or they aren't giving it a good chance. There are two of the many complex reasons why young people are facing a difficult job market. Because you're competing with the temporary foreign worker program that the businesses like because, we get a little bit benefits. For many young people, the need for a job doesn't end when academic year begins. Approximately 43% of full-time students work part-time during the school year. I am one of those students who does work, by the way. COVID was harmful for youth employment. Let's gonna open this in the young. This is another one we're gonna read. Improving access to job. Employers, policymakers, and funders who support young people and youth employment programs must do more to respond to this reality by addressing the youth unemployment in such a way that recognize that this is a year-round challenge. I literally, if it wasn't for Salisbury, I don't know what I would be doing. I probably would have went with that employables. Yeah, I think they need like youth training programs, and I think they need to really amp up that program. Yeah, let's see who's messaging. Yeah, yeah. So one of the best parts is, yeah, to someone who's just messaging me right now. But anyways, funders who support young people in youth employment programs, there are long-term consequences when people have difficulty finding work or don't have meaningful work at the beginning of their career. The public and private sector must demonstrate that they are prioritizing the needs of young people, which they aren't, and helping fostering new opportunities for them. A loss of work integrated learning programs. They help young people combine academic studies with experience in the workplace. Many of them have less access to them today than they did prior to the pandemic. Fuck COVID, am I right? This is one of the initial findings from RBC Young People and the Economic Inclusion Longitudinal Study. They find the report facing challenges young people in Canada navigating a new employment reality. So COVID really screwed us over. Kind of short, intensive opportunities for young people to gain much needed work experience have not rebounded to pre pandemic levels of availability. We need to change that. Business, academia, and government must prioritize work and work integrated learning to ensure that all young people, especially those from diverse backgrounds, have an opportunity to take part. Making investment a priority. The fallout from a lack of early support for young people includes lower earnings in the long run, a higher likelihood of future unemployment, and challenges around health and job satisfaction. Yeah, because people want to fucking kill themselves. It is concerning that 11% of young people are not employed or in education and or training. An unprecedented number of the youth employment skills strategy. Yep, all this right here. 46% are employed and not pursuing education. However, just because they're employed doesn't mean they don't need continued support. Young women, especially those with lower earnings, are paid less than their male counterparts, our report found. Young immigrants are less likely to be thriving at work compared to those born in Canada. Employers can play a key role once young people find jobs. Their work's meaningful, they can get an equitable wage. They can also be proactive by asking young people, especially young immigrants, what they need to thrive at work. Demonstrate this, which a lot of them don't do. And conserving a survey mechanism. Now, down the road, yeah, this is factual. Now, COVID was harmful for young employment. Again, all of this right here. Canada had one of the highest rates. Another one right here. Post-secondary graduates fare better. Education does not provide a level playing field for diverse youth. Again, COVID really screwed up everything. This is another thing right here. Forget like, and this will be felt for decades to come, is what this article is saying. Innovative pathways are immortalize the worst economic effects. Am I right? Or am I right? Yeah. While it does not reach everyone, the free online tutoring mentioning programs, the study buddies, school boards scramble to adapt. Like this is, I've had to do the work placements, right? And none of them, they don't even do that. Like I never got hired. I never got asked for those things. I've applied, but I never had it. They need to protect youth from predatory and exploitative practices. Yeah, never had that. I had to learn it all myself. But yeah, COVID was really a horrible thing for people. COVID was horrible for the job market. Yo, Metro, what's up? We're just exposing the Canadian job market right now. And it seems as though that looks as though, from what I can read, that once businesses started screwing us over and just far crying that they couldn't find any jobs, they were like, ooh, well, maybe now our youth can't get work. So what do we do now? Yeah. And someone just on the subreddit, because I said I was planning to leave Canada, I said, no, certain people have ruined this country. Like, I side with you. I'm planning to leave Canada for a better career at some point. Finally, someone with sense in this subreddit. Massive W. Like, I'm fed up with Canada. Let's look at this right here. Let's look into some more stuff. Canada is changing foreign worker rules as unemployment rate rises. Unemployment rate's trending higher than Canada's, but it's not because of layoffs. Yeah, it's because there's too many people. Nearly 1 in 5 Canadian part-time workers can't find work. Canadian youth unemployment, yeah, with summer jobs especially hard to come by. I was hired as a summer, like a temporary summer guy, and I managed to work myself into it. I was noticing a labor shortage. Here's what's really going on. Yeah, around $100,000, but many companies can't find those with specific skills. It depends on what it is. Mostly nearly, so they're all getting rid of all the young people for jobs. Yeah, right here. Another one right here. This is when I was at war with the Canadian job market. This is when I really got pissed off with them. Um, workers, contractors, plum. Yeah, these right here. 1 in 4 employers have hired someone they normally wouldn't have had due to a shortage in workers. Bull crap, because you never would have hired me. Employers outbidding each other on pay. Osmond says really easy to lose workers. There's just no loyalty anymore because you're not loyal to them. You would rather hire someone else other than them. This is what I was dealing with back then, right? This is what I was dealing with when I was like searching for work. Where are all the workers gone? You're not hiring them. And I knew that was the case. Like I was looking for work. Now I don't have to. We have a wage shortage, not a worker shortage. That's exactly what they're saying. Unemployment numbers are still the worst for recent immigrants. 9 years and 15 jobs. The end of this cycle is eating my confidence. Yeah. See, look, people can't find workers. Disabled workers in Canada get fewer hours and less pay. Rebels doctor shortage, immigration stream. Quebec's worker shortage worsens. Employers plead with leaders to welcome more migrants. See, they were all these employers who couldn't find workers because it's even harder for young people to find jobs, and the unemployment rate proves it. See, 2 years later, look at this. They're just going to boot out all the unemployment. The job search says longer job search for young people, not layoffs behind the numbers of unemployment. Nearly a year after graduating from Carleton University with a degree in engineering physics, Surya Nashan is still struggling to find employment. She also lives in Ottawa, applied to dozen positions since May. I would honestly say if you have enough money, leave Canada. If you like, don't waste your talents out. Don't waste your talents here. Canada clearly does not want you as a citizen. Canada clearly does not want you as a citizen. And he's made through multiple rounds of interviews, including elaborate proficiency testing. He has still not yet found a permanent job. I've applied to 80 plus jobs at this point. I've applied to like almost 100. And often you don't even hear back. The 24-year-old told CBC News. It's up among youth. A sizable share that includes, yeah, yeah. He said expecting pay higher to tuition for a technical degree would give him a leg up in the job market. Now he's just saying that he's unemployed makes him feel down. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. You have to literally go to war with this job market. You have to literally say, give me a job or give me death. That's the only way you can get a job in this economy in Canada. Or you gotta know somebody, or you gotta be really corrupt. You gotta be like a corrupt bastard, or you gotta literally like get gigs. I just love the Pokemon cards I bought. Chubby Pikachu. New job seekers behind unemployment. Economist. Exactly. This is what I'm talking about. Because they're not hiring people anymore. Now, like I said, I'm very thankful that my job hired me for like what I could do. What's for supper? Oh, I already had my supper. It was chicken wings and more chicken, some pasta, and a soup with some vegetables in it. And with crackers. But here's one of the things we're doing right now is exposing the Canadian job market. So this isn't just so the consequences of adding too many foreign workers through the businesses side is you're kicking out all the youth. You're kicking out all the youth that could learn. A lot of youth who might have innovative ideas, and I'm one of those youth people. Like this is why when you see all this, I actually feel that I do not have a future here in Canada, and I may have to look elsewhere. I literally was saying that earlier in this stream that that was the case. Highlighted youth are bearing the brunt of the labor market downturn. Exactly. Half the unemployment rate because they were not previously in the labor force because they were in school. Some are recent university graduates, while others are students or high school graduates. Mid 2023, we got a lot of data points are almost at odds with each other. The unemployment rate has been rising overall, but with Canada population growing there, the jobs gains more or less month to month, which means that right now, relative to size, the unemployment rate is rising. It's only part of rising unemployment rate can be explained by layoffs. It's definitely softening. There's students in a position where they're still looking for jobs or longer. It is like insane. It is like a bloodbath out there. People commonly lose their jobs on maternity or parental leave. That's another one right there. He might pursue a master's degree to boost his resume. He suspects that with so many layoffs coming across the tech sector, he could be competing with more experienced candidates who have recently lost their jobs. Conducting interviews, I'll reach out for feedback. There's been numerous times where I've lost out to somebody who's literally had 5 years of experience or has had a master's degree and all these other things. I would say you have to leave Canada. You have to leave Canada. He said he's making money through freelance work and tutoring gigs. He might have to move back in with his parents, wants to continue living in Canada. He might look into the US or elsewhere if he can't find a job here. That's exactly what I'm in. I fear for my future because I feel I'm going to try to make it work with Canada, but I don't think that I, as a Canadian, will be able to make it out in Canada. I think I will have to struggle like a lot of these other students are. Like, like I'm on the same level as this dude. Like, I'm in biology, and I would have to fight for the same jobs as other biologists, people who are more experienced, because Canada is not very research innovative. Canada is not very research innovative at all. In fact, it is literally like a struggle to even work. If you think you don't have a future in the job market, how about position yourself learning that's something that's hot for the job market? Well, the thing with biology is that it is in demand, but not in Canada. So I could literally go elsewhere. Hey, that's career month. Hey, and there, just hang out, just chill. Make a career that's in demand. Like biology does have a demand. It's just it's harder to find the demand in Canada because Canada's not very research innovative. But if you go elsewhere in the world, there is research innovation. Well, people can't find jobs they take degrees. That's not even demand. Like I'm just reading the article right now. But I'm saying if you can't find a job in these sectors, like if you're in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, if you can't find a job in one country, there's another country that will take you. There's another country that will take you. STEM is always in demand. Science, technology, take something that's in demand in Canada. Fuck Canada. You need to watch this entire stream right now from the back. We've literally discussed the whole labor market corruption, and we're gonna go with more. Like, and a lot of this because Canada really doesn't have much. It's more like arts and all that stuff. A lot of us new grads, people preparing people for lengthy job search. Toronto, again, find your social work degree. Okay, that one is not as in demand. I know someone who's a bio major and still can't find a job. That's when you go to fucking America or go to fucking Europe. Like I got my passport today. I literally can go anywhere within a certain amount of time. I thought a degree in social work was practical. It was a type of job type degree. Okay, this one is similar to psychology. Okay, psychology is really bad for jobs unless you go for like a therapist or something like that, and they require a master's or something like that. Um, continues to meet with students longer to receive diploma. We have a 5-year alumni policies because we understand sometimes it takes a while for students to get a job. I want to go to Yeah, that's actually what I did. I actually applied for a to college to get a diploma in lab tech and biotechnology. That's what I'm doing. I'm right now waitlisted, but I actually have made moves for that. I literally applied for that. But I'm not talking about me. We're talking about overall. I think over the couple of years, we've seen students express more anxiety. High incidence of anxiety is a real pandemic, but economic conditions are constantly evolving. Again, you have to go to war with the job market. I did not predict. Yeah, social work student is very difficult. It's not in demand. Yeah, like students who have and adults who have disabilities. Yeah, in Canada and even in the states, no one really cares. Unfortunately, about that. Or going to trades, another good option. Trades has a shortage, but a lot of people are too lazy to go into trades. I just don't have the physical thing. Applying job boards. LinkedIn is a shitty place to apply. LinkedIn is like no one. I have yet to hear people who get jobs on LinkedIn, unless you're like some sort of like tech master, like those guys. Indeed, and reaching out to specific organizations. Type 1 diabetes. Once you're a graduate, I'm off my parents' health insurance. So having health insurance, even compared to a wage, is very important to me, just because of the cost of my medical supplies. Applicants with more experience, those who have a graduate degree, gain the jobs for which she's applied. Goes to graduate school eventually, but competitive nature needs you be top of the class to make it into most programs. Did not predict to be this challenging me to find an entry role at all. There's got to be more that can be done. Well, it's called Leave Canada. Leave Canada. 100 job applications later, this newcomer still can't restart his engineering career. Jobless population Toronto is more than Regina, back to pandemic levels. Crackdown of foreign worker exploitation. They came to Quebec for a job. Now these migrant workers can't afford groceries because everything's so expensive. Smoke and mirrors about truth of workers' wages not keeping up with inflation. Temporary immigration programs are pushing down wage growth in Canada, economists say. This is all what I'm looking at right now. This is all what we're talking about right now. Like, yeah, going to trades. Trades actually are really good. I know one of my friends is going into trades, and I told him, go for it. Go into carpentry, go into those things, get those certifications. Like, it'll probably pay you about as much as me, if not even more. Like trades. Like, those are always going to be in demand. In the 80s, it used to be like that. Most people who school abroad won't be able to find jobs still. Like, I will make sure that that's the case. Like, literally, you gotta like sell your soul to the devil. Like, you literally have to. It almost feels like how Canada can win war for talent and become richer too. Um, well, first off, you need to become more innovative in research. Temporary foreign worker program sees 68% jump in approvals because nobody is hiring. People commonly lose their job on maternity or parental leave. Critics say EI needs an overhaul. Low unemployment is not sustainable and feeds inflation. No, we have high unemployment. But yeah, so that's all the time I have here. And I will see you guys in the next video. Automotive and HVAC are in demand. If you want retail. But the thing with retail, I work in retail, by the way. Like, I'm just saying, I'm just exposing this for like major corporations. Because if you go to, I've applied to Walmart a lot of times before, and Walmart's like, "Go fuck yourself." Like Walmart's like, "Go fuck yourself." McDonald's says, "Go fuck yourself." Like, and they get lots of applications. Like, obviously, Metro has not watched the entire video. Because I do explain a lot of that too. We literally read articles about that too. Like NGGYU, if you watch this whole stream from start to finish, you will see that I talk about this stuff. We talk about it, and if we look at this, Amnesty International, Canada, foreign workers, temporary foreign workers report. Abuse is this is from Amnesty International. This is from Amnesty International. Abuse is systemic in Canada's temporary foreign worker program, which means we need to overhaul the program. This is what I got in the email from Amnesty International. This is an article from Amnesty International. Canada has destroyed me. Labor exploitation of migrant workers in Canada criticizes the structure of the temporary foreign worker programs, which allows employers to hire migrant workers primarily for low-paid jobs across various sectors and tie workers to a single employer who controls both their migration status and labor conditions. 32 actions. So let's see what they recommend. Let's see. Amnesty is the movement of 10 million people who mobilizes humanity. Okay, contents. Let's see. Wage theft. There's wage theft. Let's see. Let's see what they say. Provincial authorities prevent discrimination. Gender aspects, pre-departure enforcement complaints, rec mechanisms. Let's see, evidence base. Findings of racial discrimination. Canada's immigration policy and the foreign worker program. The roots of Canada's temporary migration programs, the legacy of slavery and white migration policies. So you can read this all, guys. So here are all the permits that we gave. Here are all the permits that we gave. This is from Amnesty International, a report from Amnesty International. Yeah, here's what they even talk about. The low-skilled pilot program. In response to criticism that migrant workers were taking jobs away from Canadians, the Canadian government announced an overhaul of the program. Separate program, the social work development, and here's what they're saying. They need it not based on employer demand. They need to up the charge for this. So here's what they're looking at right here. Labor exploitation. Yes, that's exactly what they're saying. This is what's happening. There's wage theft. This is what happens. Unfair and unlawful deductions. This is what's happening. Excessive working hours. This is what's happening in a lot of businesses in Canada. Extra tasks and tasks not included in the contract. Unsafe conditions at work. Inadequate housing. Racist, psychological, and physical abuse. Radicalized gender-based violence. Restriction of movement, surveillance, and a lack of privacy. Canada responsibility for abuses. Ineffective and inadequate remedies. Yeah. These are all. Now, where do they talk about the ways that they could fix this. Conclusion recommendations. Okay. Recommendations. Overhaul the temporary foreign worker program to prevent and address the systemic discrimination workers due to their class, gender, which again, grant open work permits to migrant workers participating in the temporary foreign program and ensuring they can change employers and jobs freely. Abolish all of the closed permits, tied visas, granting open permits instead. Remove all eligibility criteria for permanent residence in discrimination of low-skilled migrant workers due to their class, gender, nationality, or race. Revise the country's migration policy to better respond to the reality of the labor market, ensuring that short-term temporary migration is not relied on to fulfill labor demand that is structural for the economy. Codify the International Covenant on Economic into law. Another law thing. Collect and monitor statistical data. Work with provincial authorities. A lot of these right here. Collective bargaining rights. Ensure that they have all security benefits, including employment insurance, and remove limitations. Ensure migrant workers obtain the redress for human rights they have survived. And here's more others. Canadian provincial provinces. Alberta should ensure the full inclusion of agricultural workers. They ensure the housing standards meet the international obligations. So this is what Amnesty has talked about. This is an Amnesty report. Migrant workers in Canada. Temporary foreign workers scheme. Inherently exploitive. I had a professor tell me about this. CBC has done an article here too. We need to overhaul the system. Again, right here, cosmetic changes. They need to implement the reforms required to bring Canada in line with Canada's human rights obligations and to respect the rights of workers. Lightening conditions on farms, since they can. A group of workers called systemic slavery. A special rapporteur from the United Nations said the temporary foreign worker schemes make migrant workers vulnerable to contemporary forms of slavery as they cannot report abuses without fear of deportation. Well, I'm gonna head out now. See ya. See ya, NGGYU. But this is the corruption. This is how the corruption is. This is an actual. We need to overhaul the foreign worker program. This is exactly what happens. Inspections and fines. They need to do more. They need to do more. So that is what we're doing today, and that is our little bit of exploitation that we found. And yeah, yeah. Anyways, I'll